Well, hello there, good afternoon, and here's hoping that everything is working, that I've got audio, and we're going to try this again today. I tried it yesterday afternoon, right in the middle of the afternoon, about 2 o'clock, and nobody seemed to show up, and I understand that YouTube is having a few problems with their notifications, so I'm just going to push on through this. If anybody watches, fine. That'll be there for the replay if nobody does. And if you are watching, give me a shout out or say hello in the chat so I know who's out there. And if any of the regular guys or any even new people want to join me, I'm using Streamyard. I got room for a few people to keep me company a little bit while I work on this airplane. And sometimes it's very slow going, and I've done a lot of work on it since the last live stream because so much of this stuff requires a lot of figuring out, and that it's just hours go by, hours after hours of trying this and figuring out how this is going to work and that's going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by showing you what I've accomplished so far, which is quite a bit on the fuselage and the installation of the flight controller and the wiring and all the peripherals, and testing some of that out, initially setting up INAV, and before this thing is ready to fly, what I'm going to do is go through a complete top to bottom going over of the INAV setup with the radio and all the flight modes and everything. Drone Life RC, how you doing, my friend? Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. I don't feel quite as lonely right now, and I think it's you and me, but that's fine. So here's what we're building here is this, we're building this thing, and it's the Sonicmodell Binary. This is an example of a model that somebody else built up that's got every which kind of camera. It looks like he's got a 360 camera up there in the cockpit, an FPV camera on a tilt and swivel. He's got some kind of a little sports cam taped down to the right-hand rear stabilizer there, and antennas and everything sticking up all over it. And mine's going to look something like that when it's done. But let's start. Let me start by showing you where I am on this thing right now. And there is the model. And I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to move it over here to where I have the overhead camera, which might get a little better image of it. So let's see if that does. There we go. I think that's might be a little better. Let me zoom out on it a little bit here. Yeah, that's better. So let's go over this. Make sure I got it in the center frame here. All right, let's start up here with the canopy, and this is the pan and tilt mount for the FPV camera. And of course, this, when you're ready to fly, this thing fits down in here like this, and then it's got magnets in the back which hold it, and it's pretty steady. I can't imagine it popping off of there unless there's some kind of a crash or something like that. But that's how that fits in. And in this thing, we've got the pan and tilt servo and the camera. So that's basically 3 different leads coming out the back here. And then there's another lead from the camera for camera control. And then I'm also going to put the lost airplane beeper up top here. And there's a 4th wire for that. So what I did with the wiring is label all the connectors so I can take that thing apart if I want to. And I'll show you what I got here. Let's move it. There it is. So these servo plugs here are all labeled pan, tilt, cam, beeper, and all that. Now normally when you're just going to change out the battery in this thing, you got to get down in here to the battery compartment. You can just set this up on top of the wing while you change out the battery. The wires are long enough, but the whole thing does come unplugged if I want to do that. And then down in here, of course, up here is the nose wheel steering, and this is the battery compartment, and that's a 6,000 milliamp 4-cell in there. So that ought to give this puppy about 45 minutes of flying time, which probably be pretty good. So that's this compartment, and then that's the mount for the camera, and I'll fire it up here in a couple minutes and We'll see how everything works. Then we come over here to where the brains of the outfit are. And there's the flight controller down in there. With all of the, let me get a little pointer here, with all of the cabling. These wires here are already wired up to the servos in the back for the elevator and the rudder. You've got all these connections that go in here into the top for the VTX, the camera, the buzzer. Over here is the receiver connection, and then over here is the telemetry from the receiver. This one back here escapes me. Oh, that's the GPS connection over there. This bank on the side over here is for all the servo connections, and I have to hook up the ailerons to this board, and then I'm going to put this on here and flip it over. I think I can set it right down on. I'll just hold it here while I show you. In the back compartment here, you can see I've got the receiver right over here, and that's a 16-channel Frsky R9 long-range receiver. It's got diversity antennas, so it's got two antennas, T-shaped antennas. One of them is taped down in here along the wall, and the other one, it runs across the model, and you can see it's sticking out each side. There's the one on the other side. Where is it? There it is. And what that does, it gives you antennas in both directions crossing in the center. So the range on this thing ought to be pretty good. Also down in here on the side is I've got the VTX, which is the video transmitter, which generates a good deal of heat. So what I'm going to do is the bottom hatch of this thing, I'm going to cut cooling fins, and I might even 3D print an actual cooling cover to let the air flow through this whole fuselage and keep this VTX there on the side. I 3D printed the mount for it, and then I mounted the VTX antenna right here on the top. I printed a little mount, cut the foam out, and glued that mount down in the foam. And then this over here, I 3D printed. That's a housing for the GPS module, and that's just stuck on the top of this thing with double sticky tape, and the wire runs down through there and up into the flight controller up here. So all of that is wired up. Back here, these two XT60 plugs will go to the wings, to the ESCs to power them. These two wires here go to the flap servos, and I'm running the flaps, the pan and tilt from the camera. I'm running that plug directly into the receiver itself, because there's only 8 places on this flight controller to plug servos, and I have more servos than that. So since the flight controller does not have to be involved in the operation of the flaps or the pan or the tilt, I just wired them directly to channels on the radio receiver itself, and so the wires to those things actually run down underneath and plug directly into, I'm trying to get it so you can see, but anyway, they plug right into the front of the radio receiver there, and that gives me plenty of places to plug things in. So that is that's the wiring, and that's what I've got done so far, and that's the brunt of all of this mind-boggling work that's involved in there. And I want to show you the wiring diagram. that for this flight controller board, so you can see just exactly what I'm dealing with here. So, Drone Life RC, so far it looks like it's just you and me. But man, thanks for coming by and watching, and thanks for the company. I appreciate it. I hope there's something about this is interesting. But I did want to chronicle it, and there will be a it'll be there for replay if anybody should care to watch. But this is the Matek 765 flight controller, and as you can see over here. I don't know if you can see can you see my mouse here on the screen? It's got, yeah, there it is. On the right side are all the places where you solder pins in for the connections of the GPS module. I also have an airspeed indicator with a pitot tube that's going to probably mount in the wing. So that I've got a connector in there to plug that into. Over here is where you're in this yellow square here is where the VTX and your cameras plug in. This thing can handle 2 cameras. Hey Mike, how you doing? Night Train FPV, good to see you. Thanks for coming in, my friend. We are never alone. Yeah. At any rate, I didn't think wiring this up on a live thing would really be a good idea, because by the time I got all the wiring done, I probably had 20 or 30 hours of building in this thing. But this is where all the servos plug in down here. At the bottom of the board, you've got the main battery leads here and the 2 power leads that go out to the ESCs. And then the signal leads from the ESCs to determine the motor speed come in and actually hook up to the S2 and S1 over here and S2 outputs of the board. It's designed to handle twin motors. So that is the wiring I've been dealing with, and I got it all in there, and I have it pretty well working pretty good. So let's do this. Let's go over here and zoom out as far as I can, and let's fire this puppy up and see what happens so far. And then what I want to do is get to work on the wings and start installing all that stuff. So let's zoom this out here, and TT Charlie RC, hey, how are you, my friend? Thanks for stopping by. Somebody that hasn't been on one of my streams before, so I thank you, sir. I will have to check out your channel after this is all over. You know, I'm primarily a drone channel, but I'm an old RC guy, going back a lot longer than I like to admit. But I started flying RC airplanes in, I think it was 1967. So that is 52 years ago. And I've flown everything, helicopters, turbines, airplanes, but I just got hooked on drones, and I've been flying drones and learning FPV and doing all that kind of stuff. And because of the FPV, my interest kind of got piqued about the FPV airplanes. So I decided not to start with a simple one, but to start with the Sonicmodell Binary, with the Matek 765 wing controller, all the bells and whistles, and that's what we've been building here. And I've got it pretty well wired up. And what I'm going to do right now, before I do anything, Charlie, let me go ahead and give you a blue wrench, because that's how we do it here. Anybody that's been here before, I know they have, because they've got a blue wrench, and anybody new shows up without one. So you're welcome to the family, my friend, and I hope you find this interesting. And these live build things sometimes can get a little slow and drag out, but some people like it, some people don't. So what I want to do right now is I want to actually power this thing up and show you, I'll make a little room here, show you how it's all working so far. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to power up this little FPV monitor, so we can actually see what's coming through on the. And I will put that in, hold it up in front of a camera so you can see it when the time is right. And I'm going to leave the lens cap on the camera so that we get a black background on the thing. And we got to go under here, and first then we turn the receiver on. I got the jumper, the new jumper TX here with the Frsky R9 module in the back, and in the airplane is the R9 receiver, 16-channel diversity receiver. So we got the receiver on, and got a 6,000 milliamp battery in this puppy. Let's plug it in. And of course, there's no ESCs, so there's not going to be any beeping yet. But let's take and put the hatch on it here. And let me wheel this back. So we got all kinds of lights blinking. I have, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not, but I'm going to try to show it to you. This is what I've got on the display. And is it upside down or right side up? No, that's right side up. Okay, so that's what I got on the display there. Frame rates are making it blink like that. It's not really blinking like that, but I think if I roll the airplane, let's see if it's, yeah, you can see the this is not optimum here, but you can see if I roll the airplane, the horizon rolls, and if I pitch the airplane down, the line goes down, and if I pitch the airplane up, so the display is working fine as far as the gyro, picking up the attitude and everything. If I take the lens cap off the camera, you can see I've got a picture, but it's kind of confusing to see the on-screen display, so I'll put that back on. So all that is working fine, and then on the transmitter over here, I've got this knob set up to pan the camera back and forth. And I'm going to get a 180-degree servo instead of this 90-degree servo, so it'll be able to turn. But it's ordered and it's coming from China, so it's going to take a while to get here. But there's the pan on the pan and tilt, and then if I turn it over on its side here, on the side slider here, I've got the tilt, and that pans the camera up and down. So you can see I can pan it sideways and tilt it, and that works pretty good. The elevator and rudder servos are in there, and they work. Right now I have this thing set in pass-through mode, which means the flight controller is bypassed. So if you were going to fly it like this, it would just fly. But I can put it into stabilized mode, and then as I move the airplane around, you can hear the servos making corrections. There's no ailerons yet, but that's the rudder servo, that's the elevator servo. So that's all. So far, so good. I haven't done the final setup in INAV or set up all the many modes that I have to set up yet, but at this point, the airplane, the nose wheel steers. Let me see if I can hold it up here and let you see the nose wheel. If I work the rudder, you can see the nose wheel steering, so that's working with the rudder. And it's been a lot of work and a lot of time setting it up to this point, but so far so good. So let's go in here and unplug it. And turn off my little monitor. It's got full telemetry to the radio, and it not only can I see in the on-screen on the OSD all the satellite information and everything, but I can also set voice alerts on the radio down the road when I get the airplane done to voice out anything I think I might need to know, like mode changes or altitude warnings or GPS warnings or anything like that. So what I'm going to do right now is take, and we'll put this thing back over here, out of the way, and that's where we've come. Now I've got this box full of stuff here that needs to go in this airplane. I also have this gizmo, which came in for it. And if you look at, come back picture, and if you look at this picture right here, you can see that it's got lights all over it, and they actually sell the lighting kit for the airplane, and I ordered it, and the airplane and the motor and servo stuff I got from Amazon, so that came quick. But the landing gear and the lights I had to get from Banggood. Banggood had the light kit in China and the landing gear in the States. So the landing gear got here in about a week, and it took 3 weeks plus to get the light kit, but it just came in, so I can put that in. I thought if I'm doing this, I may as well put the lights in. It's got blinking lights up on the stab. I mean on the tail back there. It's got wingtip lights, and it's also got 2 landing lights over there to each side of the motor, and it's all controlled with a little controller on a built-in switch, which works on a 3-position switch on the radio. And I think by the time I get done with this thing, this radio's got God knows how many switches. I think I'm probably going to end up using all of them. And the interesting thing is going to be remembering which switch does what. So I'll have to put some time in practicing with that. The light kit is pretty neat, and that's it. You get these little LED lights, and it tells you they're labeled tail. And this, I got to tell you, the foam has the most obnoxious smell that I've ever smelled. But this little controller, wow, what an aroma! Is that the? Yeah, that's the foam. Oh, I got to get rid of that. Terrible. It smells like a dead fish. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these things out of here the easy way, without having to try to thread all the wire through it. And get rid of this foam, because it's terrible. Wow. Pretty tough stuff too. Almost feels like the kind of stuff that they put in the bottom of plant arrangements. Okay. So how we doing, guys? We got 4 people here. Hey, Jerry, how you doing? Good to see you. Glad you made it. Yeah, I tried this yesterday, Jerry, and nobody showed up. After about 10 minutes, I said, well, I guess nobody's interested. I just shut it down, figure I'd do it today instead. And you missed the beginning of it. I went over all the progress I did, so I got quite a bit of work done on the fuselage, and all the wiring, the electronics, and the cameras, and painted it. All that stuff is done. So if you get a chance, take a look at the replay of this thing. So let's see what we got here. We got a wire, which battery, 7 to 24 volts for this. Connect the battery port to your main battery pack. Connect the PWM port to a free channel on your receiver or flight controller. Assign a 3-position switch. Yeah, but that doesn't tell me if if I need to run power from the receiver, because that'll be different power than the battery for these. So I guess these are just the little joys of building these things. They give you just terrible instructions or no instructions. But I'll worry about wiring this thing up at another time. What I want to do right now is just get the lights installed, because I'm going to be working on the wing. So just, whew, what a smell that is. Let me close that up, and I got to get rid of these things. So I am going to be right back. It smells up the whole show here. I'll put them in a plastic bag, throw them in the trash can. It's some chemical that they use. Some guys complain when they buy these foam cases for the drones that the foam has a horrible smell, and I've smelled some of that, but it doesn't smell anything like this stuff. This stuff smells like they soaked it in dead oysters for a while. Wow. I noticed that when I first opened it up the other day. Anyway, I'm back, and so what we want to do today is start on the wing, because the airplane, except for the setup and everything of it, which I got most of it done, but the INAV setup with all the, it's very, it's like Betaflight, only more complicated. And you guys have worked with Betaflight, you know what I'm talking about. But this is the wing here, and it's got the ailerons and the flaps. If you want to use flaps, you have to cut. And I'm looking at this, and again, the instructions that you get with this thing. Let me show you the instructions. This is what you get right there. 2 pages. The back page just tells you what the accessories are and which way your control surfaces should move. And I got news for you. If you don't understand or know which way a control surface should move on an airplane, this is not the airplane to start with. This is relatively advanced. And it really doesn't tell you anything. You got to proceed by what's obvious, and so I think that we'll start out by seeing how everything goes. So this comes off, and I give you a couple of screws to hold it on. That's the engine nacelle, and then what we're going to need is a couple of servos for each. Couple of servos for the flaps, and we need one of these things. I think they give you enough wire here. That's an ESC, and then the rest of the pieces and parts we're going to need some linkages. There's some linkages there, and this is motor mounts. We're going to need motor mounts, and the motor, we're going to need one of those. And then there's a bunch of extensions and splitters, and I think that's all I need for this one wing. So let's see what we got here. And the lights, of course, are going to go in here, and then they have channels cut to run the wires from the lights down into the wing, and then out here by the wingtip light into the wing. So let's. And then they give you clear plastic which you cut out and glue over the top of this. So let's see This says NLL, NLR, LLR, LLL, and tail. So, which one is a wingtip and which is a landing? Is LL the landing light, or is NL the landing light, or which one is the wingtip light? So that, yes. Let's see if the instructions make that clear here. It's just okay. They have it right there. They actually tell you. Hallelujah, they tell you which is which. Hey Jerry, you want to come in here and join me on the panel here and talk to me while I'm doing this? I'm going to post a link in the I'm going to go ahead and post a link to the chat. If anybody wants to come in, you're more than welcome. I like having company when I do this. Let's see here. Let's get the link and put it in the chat. It says Streamyard. There you go. Anybody want to try their hand at being a star here for the throngs and crowds that are watching this? Don't be shy. Let me know. If I don't notice you in there right away, I'm not really looking at the computer here, but I'll keep glancing over there to see how it's going. Okay, so NL means navigation light. There we go. So this wingtip, this wing is the right wing. So we need the right navigation light, which is this little puppy here. Navigation light right. And I hope they got them labeled right, or else I'm going to have the green light on the wrong side, and I'll be flying against the law. So it's got this cute little wire here. And these little lights, if you can see them, let me come in on that a little bit so you can see what I'm dealing with here. You can see they have 4 LEDs on each side and a little post which you just push into the wing. That couldn't be any simpler. So let's see what we got here. I guess the wire's on the bottom, so I want the wire on that side. I guess this just pushes right in here like that. Huh. Pretty cool. And then the wire runs in this channel, which is pretty thin. And the wire's kind of twisted, so I guess you have to and I'm going to need something to push it in there with, I think. Yeah, I'm going to need something. I don't want to make the is it deep enough? Let's see how deep it is. Not real deep, but I don't know. It doesn't really go in deep enough to want to stay in there, unfortunately. And the channel, maybe you're supposed to put it in sideways like this in the channel. This could be a big pain in the ass, actually. But others have done it, so and what some people do is just put some filament tape over the top of it to hold it in place. But I'm afraid that I might just ding up the wing if I keep trying to push it in there. It's very small wire, but it just doesn't want to seem to stay there. So I think the tape route might be the way to go. I know there's some black trim that goes over the wing, and maybe that'll hold it in. I don't want to glue it in, but I can get it somewhat close here. And then it comes. Wow, it's all popped out. So that's not the answer. So we'll just use some of this here. To hold it in place. Temporarily. This stuff, if you're building foam airplanes, this filament tape is a must-have. They even call it wing tape. They've given it a name. Some guys just put it over the whole bottom of their airplane. Well, that'll hold it at least in place until I get it. Now this channel here also has to double up for the servo wire here. So let's, and these servos don't screw in, they just sit in here. Now once again, we have the conundrum of, does the, oh, this answers it for you. It's only cut out this way. Okay, so that just slides right in there like that. And I imagine they're going to want you to glue those things in there, because there's nothing, I don't think there's anything that goes over the top of that. Let me see. Nitrane, which has longer wires? Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, well, I finally got the code figured out, but that would have been a good way to figure it out. You're right. The landing lights would have had shorter wires. So, doesn't show you a picture at all of whether there's a cover over this thing or whether these servos need to be glued in. There's going to be, well, we're going to need to take it out anyway to get the horn on it. So let's see if we can pull it out of here. Okay, so before I put it in, I think that just a little, well, I'll tell you what, if you glue that in there, it's never coming out without breaking it, but I would hate to fly this thing without it glued in. So I think what I'm going to do is get the horn on it, and to do that, I'll get my servo gizmo out here again to center the servo. And servo tester. 1500 milliseconds is centered, and plug it in there, and that is centered. And where is the package with the little do I already have that out here? Ah. I know there was some more horns here. There they are. Okay. Well, one thing, I got plenty of light while I'm working here. All righty. So let's see. I need a horn. And you remember we had to drill these horns out for, so this is centered. So that should be centered like this. That's good. And I can unplug it from here now. This little gizmo does all kinds of things, and one of the things that it does is it sends a adjustable pulse to the servo. And if you're familiar with drones, you know, and beta flight, 1500 milliseconds is the center. So I just sent the servo a 1500 millisecond pulse, and it worked. So we have the linkages here. Let's just do this for the time being. Okay. And I'm going to have to drill, and I'm probably, they don't give you a clue, and you won't know how much throw you're going to have until you fire it up, and it doesn't give you a clue in here as to which is the recommended hole. But I don't think I need tons of control throw. So I think what I'm going to do is go to the third hole in, and if I remember correctly, and I think I put it away, I measured this, and it was 0.82 millimeters, and then I needed to find a small drill bit here that was 0.82, and I should have just left it out of the bag here. But you don't want any slop in these things. So now we need to find a drill bit the same size. It's very scientific. No, that's 1.2. That's way too big. 0.99, 0.63. There you go, 0.82. So that is the correct size. I very rarely use this drill bit set, but it's got drill bits that look like the size of hairs here, 1/10 of a millimeter. I guess the jewelers could use something like this, but it was relatively cheap. I got it on Amazon, you know, like everything else. So now let's drill a couple of these holes. Just, in case I got to change it later. I don't want to have to take the servo out, because taking the servo out I think is going to be a hassle. So that's make sure that that fits. Perfect. Okay, and while I'm at it, let me go ahead and drill the holes on either side of that too. So that'll give me the option of changing the geometry of the control throw. You can, of course, go into the radio if it's too much and can adjust the, they call the weight, so that it slows the servo down, but then you're really losing a little resolution in the servo if you do that, because the servo is only going to be moving smaller increments. So you want to maximize the weight of the servo to give you the accuracy, and then adjust the linkages, the geometry of the linkages, to give you, there we go. So I've got 3 holes drilled out here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and put it in the center of the one that I drilled. Then I need a little screw for this. So where, there it is. Trying to keep scratching everything up on the bottom of this wing by using this bubble wrap underneath, but it doesn't help if I actually get something under the wing on the bubble wrap. So far, so good. All right. So in here, little tiny screw. And these are metal gear servos, so they actually have a number 2 screw, not a, plastic servos have a little, what looks like a little self-tapping screw. I need a little bigger screwdriver bit for this. Okay, and let's see, nowhere even close. Well, it is close. Look at that. It is close. All right, so what I'm going to do is, I hope I don't regret this. I'm going to take a little of this foam cure glue here, and I'm going to put just a little dot, because I don't want this, I want to be able, if I have to pop this thing out, I'd like to be able to. So I'm just going to put a little tiny dot of glue down in the wing there. And this stuff is, it's called Bob Smith Industries, which is a, very well-known manufacturer of glue in the RC hobby, and this is called foam cure. And if you're dealing with these kind of foam airplanes, this stuff, you could crash the airplane, break it in a million pieces, and glue it all back together, and it'll stay. So now we're going to push the servo down, and that little glue, and the nice thing about that glue is it's clear. So when I glue the plastic ends on here over the lights, as it dries, you can glue canopies with it, and it's tremendous stuff. So this wire goes in this channel here, and it goes into the bay where it's going to pick up a where it'll pick up the extension that'll take it through the ESC bay, which goes into here. Boy, this stuff just, whoa, just fits. And all this crap going to go through this hole into the wing. And that is pretty good. I'm going to use a little piece of foam sticky tape to hold that in place. And the rest of this stuff. Man, I think that wire will be long enough. I need, oh, I may end up, we'll see, but I may just end up cutting that to the length I need, which is going to be about 2 inches, and resoldering on this this connector. You know, these things, they don't build these things for this airplane. They come this way, and I can stick it with the label up, but that's the flat side. Or I can stick it with but it doesn't go all the way down in that way. Now, they give you just a piece of plastic to glue on here, but I went ahead and printed these ventilated covers that a fella called Bonafide Pirate, who's been kind of like my inspiration to build this airplane. He made these covers here, and these things will go on right here like this. And I guess, is that which side is which? Let's see. Gotta go this way. There it is. Yeah, and of course, so that's going to go, and I guess that's going to glue on to there. The problem with that is, if you ever need to get it off of there, and it holds, I won't need to stick this down. This cover will hold it on. But these ESCs are just a little on the thick side. And this thing does stick up a little bit. So I may end up mounting that with some foam tape around the outside, which will give it a little more height. But that's kind of neat, and it has the cooling holes that go through it. And I guess you're kind of realizing by now that the only color PLA that I have on my 3D printer is red. Let me take a break here a second and see what's going on. We had a few people that are actually watching this thing. Hey, Bill Thomas, how you doing, my friend? Good to see you. And Gary's here too. Wow, all right, good to see you. It says I got 6 people watching, so let's see, let me read up here and see. I got there right as you deleted the last one. Yeah, I decided that nobody showed up yesterday, and why bother? I guess it was too early in the afternoon, or YouTube didn't get the word out or something. But at any rate, I've been doing a lot of work on it, and I started this stream out halftime in the football game. Yeah, great. I started this stream out with a completely going over the airplane back here, and I've got most of the wiring and everything done, and the cameras and all working, and the BTX is working, the antennas are in. I really, did the preliminary INAV programming, so it's really coming along, and it's a good thing I didn't do all that on a live stream, because it would have been a 40-hour live stream. I mean, some of this, just the tiniest little steps trying to research. You guys weren't here a little earlier, but this, to give you an example, this this is, oops. That's not what I want. That's what I want. This is the wiring diagram for the flight controller. And I've got all this stuff hooked up. I've got this is the airspeed, the pitot tube, the airspeed indicator, which is going to go in one of the wings. And then I've got the GPS module, the receiver's hooked up, the buzzer, the beeper's hooked up, the leads for the ESCs and the battery are all hooked up. The servos for the tail are all plugged in and working. I've got the camera in and the camera control, so you can actually go in on the OSD and change settings in the camera itself. All that stuff, the VTX is in there and working, and I actually showed it in the airplane and fired it up and made it work. So if you're at all interested in that and you want to see that part of this stream, just, you know, when I'm done, just go back and watch the first half an hour of it, and that'll have all of that stuff. Still hear very interesting stuff. Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. It's interesting to me, and I don't expect this is going to turn me into like Casey Neistat's father or anything, but I think that I enjoy, you know, chatting with the guys, if nothing else. So anyway, thanks for coming in, guys. Let me get back to this here. And so anyway, I think if I use some foam tape, I'll be able to get it off of there. I have some of this white stuff. It's not that high, not like this stuff here, which is the real sticky stuff. So maybe I may have to buy some more of this. I'm running out of it, but I think I'll use that, and it'll stick up a little bit, but it won't. It'll hold everything in, and that'll cover that ESC really nice. So this guy, the guy who does these, I did the 3D, the camera mount that he designed and used it on the on there. You guys missed it before, but here's the pan and tilt camera mount that's sitting up there, and you can see inside the airplane all the cabling and the wiring. And moving on to the back, and the first thing is the GPS antenna, and I 3D printed the housing for that. Then the VTX antenna, I glued that. I made that mount and glued that in there. And then if you see these two little wires sticking out the side, right over here, right by my finger here, are the one of the two receiver antennas that run cross through the fuselage, and then another receiver antenna is actually running inside. Down in the bottom bay here is the receiver itself, and then the video transmitter is mounted on the other side. And I want to make some kind of a cooling vent to replace that bottom cover on the bottom, so that the air that comes in the front of the fuselage will flow by the video transmitter and keep it cool. And then the VTX antenna, of course, is right above it there. So it's starting to look like a 747 bristling with things sticking out all over the place. And it's a good thing I didn't do all that on the live stream, because I mean it was just seemed like a couple of days of work to get all that figured out and get that in here. Okay, so let's get back to this. So that looks good. We can temporarily just put this in the clevis in the control horn, and it's got to come out just a little. That looks close enough for right now. That's still down a little bit. Ugh. Bring it out just a little more. Come on. Okay. You want to come out of there. And what did I say? I wanted it to come out. Let's do another turn and see how that works. Perfect. Okay, just for fun, let's hook that up to this thing and see the servo move. There you go. We're flying. Cool. All right. So that's that servo, and that's glued in there. And we got the light staying somewhere, and then this light thing goes in, shares the channel with the servo wire. Let's put a piece of tape over that, just temporarily. Okay. So I think that that black leading edge trim piece may actually go enough over this wire to hold it down. If not, I'm going to have to put some tape on it. And since I'm not trying to build a scale airplane here, that'll be fine. Let me stick one more piece of this in the center just to make sure it doesn't get caught on something. You guys hear my audio okay? Everything all right? Who said that? RDFPV. Make sure my servos are centered. I'm way ahead of you, my friend. I did that first thing. First thing I did was plug the servos into this gizmo, set it to 1500 milliseconds, and centered the thing, because I don't want to have to, although I probably could get a screwdriver in there and pop that servo arm off without, because the servo is glued in and there's no other way to hold that thing in there other than, I'm afraid, other than to glue it in. So we'll tape these wires in position, and the rest of this stuff all has to go through this channel here. Now, the flap servo, so we're going to need an extension for this. And they give you plenty of extensions. So let's get a servo extension on this. And they give you these little keepers to hold it together. Not like it's going to go anywhere in the wing, that's for sure, but let's put that on there anyway. And then that will go down in the bottom of there, underneath the linkage for the flap servo. And then this is, we'll work around here when we get all the rest of the wiring in. So now we have a flap servo, which and we had a long linkage for. So we're going to do the same drill, but let's see which way this goes. Does it go this way? I guess it goes this way because there's a slot there for the wire to come out. So that's where the flap servo goes. And I need a other horn. And let's do the servo centering deal again. (1500 milliseconds). So that is centered right now. And while it's centered, I know I got a horn out. There it is. While it's centered, we will take the horn and put it at 90 degrees. And now I don't need this anymore. Okay, and then a little screw for that. This is fabulously exciting stuff, isn't it, guys? Drama. This is why they call it a hobby. Okay, and now we want to do our little drill thing again. And we'll do the 3. You see what I'm doing here? I'll do the same three holes in this one that I did in the ailerons. So if I have to move it, I can. All right. Okay, so we need one of these long ones here. And this did I put, yeah, I put it upside down because it goes this way. So, you know, they say if there's a 50-50 chance of doing something wrong, you'll do it wrong 90% of the time. I think that's part of Murphy's Law. So we have to turn it around this way, centered. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, I don't want this centered. Well, yeah, I do want it centered. The flaps will run it. One way or the other. I'm thinking the flaps, when the flaps are up, this is going to be that way. So, that's what happens when you try to overthink something. You check the chat. Audio is fine. Thank you, Gary. And let's see what's going on. After what's up? Fly in Canada. Stay cool. RD is here. Michael Bainey. Hey, Michael, how you doing? You are getting into planes. Must not have been spending enough money with That's funny, Michael. No, I've been in airplanes all my life. I just have been out of them for a while. And I got into FPV with the drones, of course, and then the FPV airplanes just seemed like the next logical place to do something different. So that's what I'm doing. The good news with airplanes is I don't have to learn how to fly them. Let's see. So that looks okay, and before I glue it in, let me check the linkage out and make sure that that it fits. Let's go in the center hole here. I'll tell you, this kit is really engineered well. All right, that I think that I need to come in from the back instead of the top with this because it's not centered. So we need to come in from the underside like this. And that then will run down the center of the groove here. And I think that'll do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I'm going to put just a drop of glue in this thing. So if I have to pop it out of there, I probably can, but it's not going to fall out. So we'll put just a little dab of glue on that. And pop that sucker down in there. Good. Not going anywhere. And then I know the flaps are in the perfect up position because I got to cut them, but for the time being I can, this has got to screw in a little bit here. That looks good. Okay, so now I need to cut these flaps out, and I want to cut them in such a way as to not screw up the foam at all. So let's see, this wire, of course, is going to be underneath the nacelle, and that's also going to need an extension. And I think that I have some 6-inch, some shorter extensions here, which may be perfect for those. Now let's see. Here's one. Did they give me 2 of these? Got all kinds of Y connectors that I don't need. God, have I got a lot of Y connectors. Anyway, this I may not need an extension on this because the plug does come out, and the place where the flaps plug in are just right there. So I can always put an extension on it if I need it. So that's the flap servo. Now I have, I'll be right back, guys. I have a very fine little saw blade that I can use to cut that foam, and it's outside in the workshop. So seeing as I got a wireless mic, I can talk to you while I'm going out to get it. But that, I think, might be the neatest way to actually cut that without having it dent the foam and squish it all up. So let's see here where I thought that I had one that didn't have the hard back on it. And I may well, but God knows where it is. I haven't used these things in many, many years. But this will help. Okay. So I'm competing with football games, I guess. And of course, there's no competition there. Okay. All right. These are These are X-Acto saws. I don't know if you guys have ever seen these things, but they very, very fine tooth. So at any rate, I'm going to take this out of here right now, get it out of the way. And what I need to do is cut this right on this line here. So yeah, that made a nice cut. Good. And then there's a chunk of foam right here. And I guess you need to carve that out, but you don't want to go too deep. So that's going to take a little finessing. But let me get this side already. You don't need a cut on that side. We just need to cut this. There's two little blocks right here that need to be cut, kind of carved out of there. So I think we'll try this. I don't know if I'm in the picture here. Try this little scalpel thing here. Come in at an angle. Cut that like that. Okay, that's not bad. Helps to have surgical instruments here. This is actually a scalpel, and I have replaceable blades for. A doctor friend of mine gave me these a long time ago, and they're great for being a hobbyist. So if you can see, I've cut that out of there almost to exactly match the angle on the back of the flaps. Maybe I should have been a surgeon. Certainly would pay better than this. All right, so now we got to do the same on this side. Yeah, this is not a beginner's, definitely not a beginner's kit by any stretch of the imagination. Is it a beginner's kit? Because there's a lot. I've found that, especially in hooking up all the electronics, I've had to draw on a lot of experience in this hobby, building things, and I mean, even for an airplane that's really pretty well built already. I don't think it's an entry-level airplane, but you can build this airplane without a lot of the added features. You know, you can build it without flaps. You don't need flaps to fly it. Probably can build it as a 4-channel without all the lights and everything, and it probably wouldn't be too bad. Okay, so let's see. Yes, the flaps do move now, up and down. And we have a nice clean edge there. Yeah, look at that. All right, mission accomplished. There we go. Yeah, this thing doesn't go up. It just goes from the center throw on down. So we'll have to be very careful in the setting that servo up to make sure that it, of course it will push it up, but we don't want flaps. We don't want flaps to be up. We want them to start at the center and go down. Cool. Okay, that'll work fine. Now yeah, I'm only going to actually be using half of the travel on that servo. I could have started it with the servo all the way up at the top, and but I got more than enough throw on that half, so I'll have to mix it out of the radio to make sure that the flaps start at the center, but that's not a problem. Okay, so we have the flaps in there, and the flap servo, and now let's see what's going on here. Mike Roach, hey Mike, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Hey Mike, I watched it because I left a comment, that video that you did with the leaves. That was just gorgeous, man. Just beautiful. I love the music too. Did good. Hey Mitch, make sure your servos are centered. We did that. Audio is fine. Yeah, okay, that's fun. Yeah, I put my camera servos left and right. It helps a lot. Yeah, I did that, Michael. I have the not only on a pan but a tilt as well. I don't know if you saw it or not. Maybe you weren't in here, but here's the pan and tilt gizmo that I have, and it pans sideways and also up and down. And the only thing I need to do is I'm going to replace the pan servo with a 180-degree servo that gives me a lot more movement. But that's a special servo that you have to order, and nobody seemed to have one in stock anywhere. All right, so what we have now is the motor mount. So we get these two little and they said that this glues in, and I guess it glues into here just like that. So, and then this just goes down on top of the whole mess like this. All right, so let's mount the motor first. Well, my workbench always gets cluttered in a hurry here. Let's put some of this stuff away. Oh, we also have one more light to put in here too, and that is the right landing light. Landing light right. Okay. So let's stick that in there while we're at it. And that goes. right in here. Wow, it's just kind of making a nice dent there. Something in there is hard. Is there a carbon fiber spar right there or something? There must be. I mean, there is something very, very hard in there. Okay, so I'm going to have to go behind it this way. Okay. There we go. And so we got one more wire has to go under this tape here. Okay. All right, that's not going to fall out of there. This is a tight fit for all this stuff in here. All right, so what else goes in here? That's it. The lights, the servos, and the motor mounts to this thing. And the wires for the motor, are they going to come? The motor mounts in the front of it, so the wires are going to go underneath. I guess that's what this flat cutout is for. Yeah, it appears that way, or else the wires go over the top. Wires go over the top. It looks like that's where the room is for them, so let's get the motor screws going. Okay. What size do we have here? We have a number 3. So let's find the right size bit here. There we go. And I think we're going to use a little bit of Loctite on this too. Considering it's screwing not into carbon fiber but into wood, that could compress a little bit and the screws could loosen. So I'm going to use a little bit of Loctite. Blue Loctite. We want the wires to be up. Okay. Oops. I don't know which one of these has got the Loctite on it or which side it's on. Ah. Screwy. Where the hell is the hole? There it is. Okay, this is pretty straightforward. The good news is we don't want this thing flying off in flight. Okay, so then this is going to go right down in here like this. Sweet. And then this will go over the top of it. Hopefully it'll go over the top of everything. Yes. Pretty cool. Okay. So let's glue the motor mount in. And I don't think we really want to, we don't want to skimp on the glue here. Okay, that's not going anywhere. Motors are much taller than we're used to with the quads. All right. So that, oh, I didn't stick this down. I guess the glue never hit the glue didn't never got to the foam. That's cool. Probably just as well. The glue is, yeah, it's on there, but I think I need some more. Some down on the foam here. All right. I think that's about it for this step. And of course, I'll do the other side on my own. Let me make sure I get all the pieces and parts together for the other side. There's the control surfaces and the okay. So let's just to see if I get a scope of the size of this thing. Let's take the wing over here and we got an image of this, and here so this a little off the picture there. Let me slide it over a little bit. So that's yeah. There's a big carbon spar that goes in the wing. But I want to leave it. I want to leave it on its back until that flap servo glue dries. So I'm just going to leave this like this. And oh, I need the motor. I need some glue behind the motor too. Back here. Okay, I missed that. I need it on the back side of that too. So we need to pull this out of here before it dries. And I need to, let me give you this view back. I need to, yeah, all this area here needs to be glued too. Wasn't thinking about that, I was just thinking about the bottom. So I need this glued, and then I'm going to need to clamp it with something too. So let's do that. Like I said, we don't want the motor falling out of here. I'm not going to trust that nacelle to hold it in. So this goes back in here. Yeah, I got plenty of glue squeezing out through that, and I think that if I leave it set up like this to dry, that will be okay. So I'm just going to set this over here on this other table and lean it up against the stand holding the airplane, and then just we'll leave it just like that. right over here. Right here, see it? We'll just leave it sit there, and there's the motor. And let that motor mount dry and make sure I got it pushed in all the way. And I think that might just take care of that. So let's see. I'm back. So there's still a few of us hanging around here. Who we got? We still got Bill Thomas is still here. Good, good, glad. Michael Bainey. Hard to tell which one he is. It says I got 4 people, 3 or 4 people, 3 people watching now. So I guess that's going to probably wrap it up for today. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the other wing, and oh, Gary's still here. All right, good. I'm going to finish up the other wing. I'll probably do that tonight, and we're sneaking up the home front. It's still a little more configuring to do an INAV. Get the stab and the rudder glued on, get all the little fairings and the lights and the light controllers. You know, it's a very time-consuming thing to build one of these things, but it's a hobby, and that's what hobbies are for, to take some time, take up your time. So I think I've accomplished about everything that I set out to here. And if you guys who didn't come in right at the beginning of this thing want a little walkthrough of all the electronics and what I did and how it's installed, just take the replay the live stream. And Art is here. Art's Place. How you doing, Art? You're not a moderator in this yet, so let me give you that. Just like your RoboMaster. Yeah, I missed your live, but I watched a good deal of the replay, and I got to tell you, Art, your live stream builds are just like my live stream builds. It's like watching paint dry. It's not what they consider. It's not what they call action-packed TV. But it's coming, and I'm sure, I absolutely guarantee you, Art, that the instructions that come with your RoboMaster are a hell of a lot more detailed than the instructions that come with this thing. This is it right here. It's a picture of an airplane. So this is an airplane, this is a wing, and good luck. So I'll tell you, it is a good thing that I've built probably 100 or more RC airplanes in my lifetime, and that I have bins and drawers and containers of every kind of piece and part and fitting and screw and all that stuff that you could ever want, because I've been digging around in that stuff, I got to tell you, to find the stuff that I need. Also, one thing that I didn't really think about when I started doing this was these things. When you have a controller board that has pins sticking up, you have to have plugs and things to go down on it, to go down on the pins. So that's where this comes in. So I actually had to get, now this will last me the rest of my life, but I had to get one of these deals with all the with all these connectors, and these things here, the little pins that you have to crimp onto the ends of the little wires one at a time, and then stick them into whatever size plug block you need. And this comes with all of them, from 1 wide all the way up to like double wide 10s, And then you need, of course, one of these. And this isn't the first time I've done crimping on those tiny little pins, but I got to tell you, it's an art form to get them right. And so I've had to probably crimp 20 or 30 pins onto connectors for this. So it's just not the kind of a building experience that's right out of the box. It requires pretty much requires a hobbyist, and I wouldn't recommend a project like this to somebody that really isn't a hobbyist and hasn't been in the hobby and hasn't had a background and all that kind of stuff. So it is what it is. I'm enjoying it, and I hope somebody maybe picked up a trick or two or learned a little something here with Art's place. No, Art, DJI is not going to have you solder or crimp or anything. It's all plug and play, and this isn't. Now, I will say there's a flight controller. It's called an Eagle Tree. Eagle Tree is the company, Vector, and it replaces the flight controller that I'm using here, and it is a plug and play deal. It's very complex, and it's a lot more expensive way to go. This guy, Bonafide Pirate, uses those in a lot of his. In fact, in the binary that he used in his videos, he had the Eagle Tree Vector, and it's a nice system, and it is plug and play. But I like. Since I've been doing the drones and I'm familiar with Betaflight and those types of flight controllers that aren't totally proprietary, because Eagle Tree stuff is completely proprietary. I think the instruction manual for it is like 80 or 90 pages, so they don't leave anything to the imagination, and it's very powerful and it's really neat. It's got a gorgeous heads-up display in the goggles. The controller is about $250, and it comes with a GPS, the main control box, and the battery adapter, which is the current flow sensor and all that. But if you want airspeed indicators, pitot tubes, and a bunch of other things, you need to spend more money. So you're looking at probably $300 just for that, whereas the controller for this airplane was about $70, and it does incredible stuff, including all the automated flight features, return to home. You hit return to home on this airplane, and it'll return to home, and you can even set it up to automatically land. But most people, it'll return to home, and then it'll just circle around. They call that loitering. It'll just circle around over your head till you decide what you want to do with it. It can fly missions and waypoints. It has altitude hold, heading hold, all kinds of really neat modes. I'm really looking forward to flying it and delving into the programming of it, because just building it and getting it up in the air is just the beginning of experimenting with this technology and playing around and seeing what you can do. So I'll try to keep a vlog going of my adventures with this thing. I don't see a tremendous interest in it, but like I said, I'm doing it anyway, so I may as well let you all look over my shoulder if you'd like. So with that, guys, I think it's time, after about 2 hours of this today, to call it a day. So we'll bring in the music as usual, and give all you, even though it is Sunday, take the rest of the day off. Appreciate you all coming. Drone Life RC, Gary, Art, sorry you missed it at the very end. I kind of did the same to you, so you might skip through the live stream a little bit, the replay a little bit to any parts, especially the beginning where I showed in pretty good detail what I've accomplished offline here. Mike Roche, thanks for coming in. Good to see you as usual. And who else we still got here? Michael Bainey, you still here? All right. So with that, going to turn it back over to my trusty sidekick, who, you know, just kind of gets in the way in the workshop. So I haven't had him around, but we'll turn it back over to him to say goodbye anyway. So guys, y'all take it easy, and Spank, say goodbye.